Valentine's Day is not at all related to what we do today. Today we buy chocolate and cards and we celebrate lovers, etc. But the origin story is actually found in ancient Rome, where King Amulius punished his nephews Romulus and Remus for their mother's crime. So their mother's crime was not being chaste. Because she wasn't chaste, he took the babies and he ordered them to be thrown in the Tiber River. Because there was a kind, merciful servant, that servant took Romulus and Remus, put them in a basket. Does this sound familiar? They floated down the river and they were rescued by a wolf, nursed them until they were found by a shepherd and his wife, and then they were raised by the shepherd and his wife, and then later went on to found Rome. So the Romans celebrated this inception of Rome by having a festival called Lupercalia. Lupercalia was a festival where they ritually sacrificed a goat or goats and a dog. And this was meant to satisfy the fertility god, Luperci. So what they did is they would select men and women, and then they would go off and couple, and they eventually would sometimes get married or end up being together forever, or they wouldn't actually decide to be a couple and they could reject it. But it was meant to be like this fun matchmaking type of festival, but it was filled with a lot of like debauchery and partying and all sorts of things. The men would run through the streets whipping women with the strips of the goat hide that they had just sacrificed for fertility, and they would do this naked. So that's the origin story. The more recent story is about a saint who basically married soldiers that weren't allowed to marry. Later on in Rome, there was an emperor named Claudius, and Claudius did not want his army getting married and having children because he wanted them to be able to focus on being in the military. So he outlawed marriage, and Saint Valentine was a priest who would marry these couples, and he ended up being killed for what he did because it wasn't allowed. So the Catholic Church took Lupercalia and replaced it with Valentine's Day to celebrate Saint Valentine. But it's essentially a love and fertility holiday. So that's the origin story.